welcome back to Will Park Garage. Today I'm working on a 2000 Jeep Cherokee Classic, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to replace the gasket on your rear differential when it's leaking. Follow along. Alright guys, so you've been parking in your parents' driveway and your old man yells at you because you're leaving oil behind all over their new expensive driveway. And you're sick of cleaning it up, so you decided it's finally time to replace the gasket on your rear differential. So this is a really simple job. You don't need a lift to do it. You could do it on a set of jack stands. Heck, if your Jeep is high enough, you can do it without even jacking the thing up. So the only thing you're going to need is a drain pan. You're going to need a 13mm socket, and let's see, a razor blade, some sort of scraper so you can clean up the old gasket. And I'd say a couple of cans of brake clean, because once you have this apart, you're going to want to clean everything out really well, because they do build up a decent amount of metal. And I don't care how well or how often you change your fluid. So first things first, since I am doing this on a lift, I'm going to put my drain pan underneath this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove every single bolt except for the top and the very bottom bolt. And the reason why is once I get all those off, a lot of times the gasket will be stuck to the differential housing. In this case, I'm going to assume it's not, since it's leaking so well. But what I'll do is, once all those other bolts are loose, I'll loosen this guy up just a little bit. That way I can get in there with a pry bar, pry it off. And the reason is, that way I can control how fast the fluid's coming out. Because this fluid is full to here. And it's going through the entire pumpkin here. So it's, you know, it's a decent amount of fluid. I think this differential holds about 2.5 quarts of gear oil. And that stuff is kind of stinky, and you don't want to spill it any worse than you've already made your mess with it leaking. So, like I said, all the bolts come off, then we'll loosen this upper bolt and this lower bolt a little bit, pry bar, get it pried loose. Once the fluid's finished draining off, I'll take those two bolts off, take the cover off, and start cleaning things up. Got my cover off. Fluid mostly drained. Like I said, next thing we're going to do, we're going to clean up this gasket area. And try not to get too much of the old gasket into the differential itself. I usually use just a razor blade just to clean this stuff up. And I'm doing this real time because it's really that simple. There's not much to this. Now some differentials can use a gasket if you'd like. Some of the older ones, it's harder to find gaskets for, and you can use an RTV, which is, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you want to make sure, if you are using some kind of liquid sealant, that this thing is completely clean and dry of any old differential oil. Otherwise, you're going to have a seal that's going to fail pretty quickly. Now, like I said, I'm going to use a little bit of brake clean. Mostly what I'm trying to do is I just want to give this thing a good cleaning. You know, it's a good opportunity to flush out whatever wear materials might be in there. You might see a little bit of metallic if you have a locking type differential with clutches and such. This is not. This is an open differential. And if I get this guy around, you can tell that because it has the spider gears in the middle here. There's no clutches or any kind of locking device. This is what gives you the open differential, where one wheel can spin at a different rate than the other. So again, I'm not really looking to completely clean this thing of all grease and oil. More of what I'm trying to do is just get some of the old dirt and, you know, wear material out of this thing. The other thing it helps with is it'll make sure that anything that comes out or tries to leak out this way is just going to be brake fluid, and it won't mess up my seal. So spray that guy down really well. All right, I got some compressed air. Just going to blow this out a little bit. Again, nothing too crazy. I'm going to dry up the bottom here of the differential. Again, mostly so that when I am starting to put this thing back together, I'm not worried about the oil leaking this direction before I have a chance to get the seal on and the bolts tight. Now is also a good opportunity to check your ring gear, your pinion, your differentials here to make sure there's no abnormal wear, missing teeth, anything that might alert you to needing to do any kind of repair. The other thing I would check is the differential pin here in the middle. A lot of times what will happen is the axle will wear into it, and if it wears too far, this retaining clip here is called a C-clip. If that goes in too far, that clip will fall out and you can lose an axle. Happens very often on off-road vehicles. So just be mindful of that. Inspect it really well while you have the cover off. All right, so I've also got my cover nice and clean now. I took it to the parts washer, took a wire wheel to the old mating surface here, got it all clean. I'm gonna give this guy one last once over a brake clean on that and this, and we'll get this thing back together. All right, guys, one more thing I wanted to mention about the cover on the differential. This one in particular is made out of a pretty substantially thick steel material. Even so, what I like to do is I'll take this thing to a bench vise, and where all the bolt holes are, tap this down with a hammer. What can happen over time is from the bolt going through, it'll deform the metal in such a way that you don't get a good sealing area everywhere else, and you can cause leaks. So just wanted to point that out, guys. Obviously, if you took a pry bar to this thing and you bent the cover up a little bit, you want to straighten that as well before you put your sealant on and get this thing back onto the car. So I've got my cover ready with some sealant on it. And like I said, I'm going to give this a nice final wipe up, making sure it does not have any kind of grease or oil on it. There's the amount of sealant I have on here. You do not need a lot of sealant. Anything that squeezes out is also going to squeeze in, and that's never good for anyone. So you can see there, very minimal amount. What I do want to do is I'm going to try to install this without moving it around too much. So I'm going to do my best to try to get lined up. Get a couple of bolts started here. These bolts don't go into the differential case, so you don't have to worry about putting any kind of sealant on them. right. Now that they're all on, I'm going to run these bolts down. Okay, real quick, just so I don't have to see a bunch of crazy comments, I'm going to show you here, see if I can get this to focus, the amount of squeeze out I still have here, even from that really thin bead. Okay, so this just goes to show, you look there, you don't need a lot of sealant. Okay guys, depending on what type of sealant you use to seal your cover, the manufacturer of the sealant might recommend a certain amount of time to let it cure before you go filling it up. I've already done that with mine, so I'm now ready to put fluid in it. I'm going with a 75 W40. Comes recommended for any vehicle that you're doing a lot of towing with or heavy off-road. And like I said, well, actually, I don't know if I mentioned it, but this truck does a lot of off-roading on a beach. Driving in soft sand is sometimes a lot of heavy strain on a lot of the parts. So full synthetic 75 W40 is what I'm going to put in this thing. And the way you fill it is through the back plug here. You remove that rubber plug and you just squeeze in the gear oil. Now I know that this differential is going to take a little over 2 quarts. So I'm going to get my 2 quarts in here. There's one. All right, this is the second one. So this should take this full quart. But what I'm looking for as I'm filling this is the level starting to come out. Well, there it is. It's actually coming out already. So once you got the fluid coming out, I like to try to do is kind of give everything a good spin. Get that oil around all the gears and up into the bearings where it should go. Then I should be able to squeeze just a little bit more in there. But you don't want to overflow this. You see the fluid starting to come out? That means we're full. Put the plug back in. Dry all this up. Last but not least, we can give this thing the Craigslist rebuild. Look at that. Nothing like some fresh paint over some rusty differential. All right, guys, like I said in the beginning of this video, it's super easy to repair a leak in your rear differential. Not only that, if you're just doing a service to your rear differential, changing the fluid or anything, super easy to do. Like I said, the main things are just making sure that your gasket surface is completely clean of grease and oil. Otherwise, that new seal is not going to seal well at all. Like I said, you can use the paper gasket or an aftermarket gasket that fits that. Just make sure you get the right one for your differential. I've seen even people put a little bit of sealant on those as well. I don't know if you really need to. I guess it depends on the quality of your rear cover. This one, pretty thick, so should be in good shape. The other thing is, those bolt holes, make sure you give them a little tap with a ball peen hammer to push them back down. That way you get a nice even coverage of sealant through the whole differential cover. But that's it for today's video, guys. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.